Mr. Makubu, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you, my brother?
I'm okay. Mashian here, Politically Incorrect Podcast. Thank you for coming back to us regarding the press release that you have made, and you are showing dissatisfaction or lack of confidence into the new Minister of Home Affairs. Can you take us through the statement, please?
The main concern of the African Transformation Movement is to know that the extension of these visas, no matter what the reason, be it the backlog of whatever applications that have been filed, be it whatever approvals that still need to be done, the extension is not a permanent solution to the actual current program that we are facing. Actual fact, when you actually go and delve into the details and the crux of things, you'll find that many of these applicants, for instance, have already expired. Their visas have already expired, or their permits have already expired. Number two, the ones that are being processed and have been processed and approved, you find that they are not in South Africa for scarce skills. Therefore, it begs a question to actually wonder, in the high unemployment rates that we are facing as South Africans, with the extended unemployment rate of the youth in the age categories 15 to 35 sitting at 48 plus, it does not necessarily want to advance the needs of the people of South Africa by actually safeguarding the microeconomy and other economies within the South African space to ensure that the people of South Africa have got something to do and they've got an economic plug so that they can be able to give back to the GDP of the country. But you find that, for instance, our people who are now, for instance, the creatives or the people that work with hands, people who plait hair or braid hair, they sit in taxi ranks with stools outside, because the microeconomy in the inner cities, for instance, has been dominated by foreign nationals who we have been told that they are in South Africa for scarce skills. You cannot tell me that if you're going to be monopolizing, for instance, in the inner city, all these salons, all of these other places of business and places of worship for that matter, you tell me that those are scarce skills. Those economies have previously been owned by South Africans, and we know at that point in time, or when we did dominate those economies, our people were able to put bread on the table. So the crux of the matter for the African Transformation Movement is the extension of these PEBs. The extension of these permits is not necessarily in the best interest of South Africans.
Thank you very much. I have in the past done work on the President Vuyo Zungula. He always laments the fact that the skills South Africans have are swallowed by people, an influx of foreigners coming to do exactly what South Africans do, and then it's misconstrued as if South Africans don't have skills. I've heard Helen Zille, the leader of DA, speaking about she welcomes foreigners with skills, and to the detriment of the DA, of course. They do not specify which skills are they. And in your statement, you do speak about the rich foreigners who come from all over the world, the rich white foreigners who go to Cape Town and make the markets, unbearable for us, because we are poor. And this seems to be a point that moves from skills to a point where it goes to racism. What is your response to the fact that the DA racial policies are going to affect how they run Home Affairs?
You see, the DA is always alluding to the fact that wherever they govern, they've got clean audits, they've got all of these effective management systems, etc., etc. But if you actually look at, let's take Cape Town as an example. I, at some point, lived in Cape Town because of the parliamentary job and work that we do. And I found it to be quite expensive, much that I couldn't even sustain myself. Now, we did, as the African Transformation Movement, research that actually says that for you to be able to survive in South Africa on a monthly basis, and say that a basket of groceries, you need to actually have about 4,365 rand with a couple of cents on the side. You go to a person who lives in Cape Town, for instance. That person is struggling to make ends meet, much that you actually look at how the systematic racism that has been applied by the DA in its governance, you'd find that they prioritize the well-off areas, for instance, as compared to actually an equitable share into all of the different suburbs and townships that are within the diaspora. You look at Igualanga, there's rainwater that's just traveling all throughout the township. You go to a Kailija, you go to a Guguletu, gangs are rampant and absolutely everything else. There's no management whatsoever in Cape Town. Now, if they are then going to then apply the very same systematic racist systems that they are bringing from the Western Cape as an example, then you will actually see what we are seeing now, because already property markets are already shot up the sky. There's this fad or this fashion that is already happening right now of digital nomads, of people who just come into the country for 3 months and get those, what do you call those things, those temporary visas, etc., and they are able to live in the country for 3 months, and they just keep on renewing. And you find that an apartment, a typical one-bachelor apartment, is now being rented as compared to just, 4,300 rand, it goes for 19,000 rand, because these people are coming in, driving up the property market, and we're not necessarily against tourism, but we are saying the proper channels must be followed, and all of that starts with the acceptance, the putting of internal measures or internal controls in place to ensure that no foreigner is coming into the country, whether white, black, Chinese, whatever you are, is not coming into the country at the detriment of our people, because our people are truly struggling to make ends meet. And that is why we are also saying that even this fashion of digital nomads, specifically in Cape Town, Pretoria, Joburg, and Durban, it must come to an end. We cannot afford that our people are driven out of their own city, where they are actually forced to go and live in rural areas because the cost of living is actually being shot up the sky by people who are not from here. Better yet, our people are actually being driven out of their own jobbing or their own working arrangements, such as your businesses, etc., because you do know that there are many black people whose businesses actually have faced foreclosure because they truly do not have a market. You know how these supply chains work. Once you open up for illegal foreigners, it becomes an ongoing thing because they actually call each other, etc., and you find that now there's a string of all of these illegal shops that don't even contribute to the tax of this country, that don't even contribute to absolutely anything as far as the taxation of this country is concerned. So what laws are we actually flouting by allowing illegal foreigners to remain in this country, by allowing people to come from wherever, Netherlands, wherever you are, and come take a dwelling place in South Africa? We are actually reinventing the arrival of the settlers in South Africa. But we are now doing it in a means or a way that actually says that we are going to take the law and bend it just so that certain people can be comfortable in our country. Yet the inhabitants of this country and the true children of the soil of this country are found to be wanting. We cannot, as the African Transformation Movement, for instance, support any of that. That is why we have said blatantly so that Minister Leon Schreiber is actually not in consideration of the black majority of this country, and is not in consideration of the poor people that have been dispossessed, not only of the economy, not only of the jobs, but of the land, because as we speak right now, all of this is actually going towards the land. You'd find that the dwellings, for instance, in locations are now taken over by illegal foreigners. There are many people via Soweto who have come to the African Transformation Movement complaining that ERDPs, that we don't have access to RDPs anymore because they've been taken over by foreign nationals. These people have also moved into private land owned by our people for industrialization purposes. Many other instances. You go to Cape Town, you can't even buy a piece of 2 square meters with less than an actual an amount that is exorbitant and inflated. All because these tourists and these people that are taking dwelling in South Africa illegally so are not assisting us as far as putting perimeters in control. We need to have people of South Africa represented and protected. That is why we are standing as the African Transformation Movement against this extension.
Helen Zille, the leader of, she calls herself, she's not a political leader, but we all know she with so much power that she rules the DA. She has said in the past, she has called Xhosa people coming outside Western Cape, for example in Eastern Cape, coming into Western Cape, she called them foreigners in their own country. But she welcomes other foreigners from all over the world. Have you seen attempts or any muscle being lifted by DA to curb the illegal white immigrants coming out of Europe into South Africa via Cape Town? Do you have any instance of them doing it?
Absolutely not. You even look at how many DA leaders and supporters as well as followers have actually called for the Cape independence. It is also so that they can be able to create their own colony. You ask yourself, Ubuti, what is a foreigner? When you speak of a black South African that is of South African descent, I'm not going to say African descent, South African descent, and you call that person a foreigner in Cape Town or a foreigner in the Western Cape, when we know very well that the doom of South Africa actually started and emanated from the settlers arriving in the Cape. So basically, you actually see a trend here where they actually want to call for the Cape independence so that they can be able to drive up whatever property rates, go up and be able to actually replicate whatever racist apartheid systems so that they also remain protected from being accountable to the country. We are not going to support that nonsense. And we have been very vocal to say that the DA, for instance, any white person does not have a right to call a black person a foreigner in South Africa. Absolutely not. I've never seen a black person who is of the soil of South Africa being called a foreigner in their own country. But we have allowed white supremacists to actually take place in South Africa in subtle means, much that because we always say that no, they have the economy, as though when before they actually arrived, we were eating stones and grass. We were not eating rocks and grass. We were able to have crops. We were able to have agriculture. We were able to have minerals being extracted from the land, and we were able to trade using all of those minerals that have been extracted to the land. White people are not the voice of reason. They are not saviors of South Africa. We are the people that are inhabitants of South Africa, and we will not be pushed into a corner where we are told that we are non-status in South Africa, for instance. We are the barriers and the carriers and the owners of the land. We must be allowed to work the land as we see fit. That is why I'm not even understanding the statement that says a black person in South Africa who is of South African descent is a foreigner. If we are all actually accountable as political parties, we need to be robust in actually stopping the DA, from replicating whatever racist system, and not only in the Western Cape area, but throughout the country. You look at where the DA is governing, for instance, in the city of Tshwane, in the city of Tshwane, for instance, abantu basemanskrala have been without water for the longest time until the ATM councillor Utatu Zwanana actually intervened and ensured that those people get water. So what I'm trying to say is that the time of actually playing politics of demographics is over. We need to be able to protect the people of South Africa and ensure that every system, whether in the executive, whether in the legislature, whether in parliament, whether in the judiciary or any other systems, protect the people of South Africa. That is why, for instance, the African Transformation Movement has been vocal and quite vastly so to actually say that the constitution must be amended to ensure that we actually have the law that reflects who we are as African people, because we cannot necessarily be governed by Roman Dutch law that does not necessarily represent us in the best way. We've got African systems, we've got African law, and why is it then made to be lower as far as ranking, as far as appeal, as far as application in the judiciary, as compared to Roman Dutch law? So all of these systems, if you actually look at it, it will start very small. You'll be called a foreigner, racism here and there, and it's going to now lead towards the eradication of affirmative action, when you know for a fact that these systems are there to protect the people that have been dispossessed of their own economy in South Africa and to protect them from being actually So I think it's actually quite clear. We need
Comrade Mkolisi, are you Mkolisi Makubo is the National Communication Manager for the ATM. He's on the road, he's battling to connect. Comrade Mkolisi.
I'm back, my brother.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. I don't want you to be cut while we're still speaking. Just give me a 30 seconds close and tell us where do we go from here with this minister.
The ATM is going to definitely be participating in the portfolio committee. The mechanisms that we have to holding the executive accountable will be used to the last end. Because the one thing that we will not be doing is to keep quiet while this dooms GNU. Let's call it a grand coalition. While this grand coalition actually pushes the narrative and the...
Okay, apologies about that. Just inform me, which political parties are leaning towards your and sympathetic to your challenges towards this ministry, and who are you hoping to work with in portfolio committees to protect the interest of African people in Parliament?
The dispensation of the portfolio committee, for instance, is calculated according to the representation of. So it's not necessarily a case of all of the political parties will get representation as far as the portfolio committee is concerned. But what I'm trying to say to you is we are not even sure if, for instance, the Patriotic Alliance actually going to stand up and say this is not supposed to be happening in the land of our forefathers, because they form part of the executive, they form part of the GNU. That is why we stood and that is not going to allow for accountability to take place. So when we get to the portfolio committee, for instance, we will actually assess which parties are inside of the portfolio committee. Then we will lobby all of them to ensure that we hold this minister accountable. But not only this minister, all of the ministers, all of the executive.
Thank you very much, Mkolisi Makubo, the National Communication Manager for the ATM. Raleboga Papa.
My brother, Raleboga Hulufe.
Inkosi. Travel safely, my brother. Thanks.
Thank you very much, good.
Dumelan, baduri. Elen namu beregua company egenya galo bozagana genale challenge mo, which is very big challenge. Yargi avere galo bona mo truck driver bona mo. Batho ba modimo Zimbabwe a re tsenetse mo ona mo jwela pele mo mega madimo company ona yona mo mega madimo pele ne go bela etse badudi ba le nao le khanyo ya go kanya ka gore le ka khona go phatela moshomo la greya moshomo le re thuse ka tsela e leng so yani le ka no tswana le gore leng o ba neng la do thewa la kwa mega madmo company ba re ke Rijaran ya Magula ya di tipa side tipa traka le traka tsa le nagos tsa short liners batho ba modimo o tetse a se le Zimbabwe le ala le bona ma Zimbabwe a tribalist ya le ba ro ke ma shona o bolediwa se shona fela HR ya ona ke le shona workshop manager ona ke le shona batho ba taisea shem batho ba taisea tra ba tsana ka fela more than 300 ke most ke mashona ba South Africa are about less than 20 so ne go bela le re thuse because these people are tribalist le mola le batho ba bereka workshop more than 15 ke ma Zimbabwe ona mo South Africa more than 15 ona mo workshop ona mo jola pele more than 15 ke ma Zimbabwe ke mashona fela le ka rumela motho a ya scout fela o bolediwa se shona fela ona polelo engwe ba e bolela and ba telela guys badudi ese le badudi ba mo wini go pela le emelle le ntshane le ka ba kae bana ba bona ta gra mshumo ba one of you guys aga gra mshumo ile ru sa nya ka le mshumo una le mshumo ya batho ba o clean ona le mshumo ya assistant workshop re na le batho ba tseba ka di workshop mo ground for zone ya batho ba dula wini roba le re thuse le mola le no ya mola le fu ba le ka ofela le ba botse ba le fe palo ya batho ba o tswa ka ntle mola ba le ngona ba ile o chaba the way ba telang ona ba ile o chaba I company ya telene ke ya Magula ile o diwa ke le shona la HR le ka ofela ke mashona ka moare o ira ibile o do dia dilo tsa se ka tsela re le bolela a o botse ntshwengwe le ngwana ka o botse please ba dudi kupela le emeleng di opportunity ke tseo ja gore batho ba ka kry-a mešomo ona mo if re cleaner this mess o leng ka moare a community ya rona it's still our community mo la le ba leng ona mara ba re telela o kare we are nothing in South Africa company ele a telela batho ba South Africa they are nothing they don't have even a say ba nayo shame if le ya manpower ele ya mola le ka di phone number tsa ka Phindile she knows me Phindile o tlo le botsa ka phone number tsa ka a le botsa la phone number tsa ka ke moditse a ntse ke ena o address mo please thushana le mo eleng ya ga advice le tsena mo la nka le fa yona le bile le ka phone le ka monna la di loudspeaker ga ba bo just straight live myself